So Neil and I just finished our conversation with Dr. Jay Gordon, just opening up that dialogue about what are the options for new parents or parents with small children or even bigger children for that matter. And we're literally in the car right now heading to 19-year-old Jake's house, who is going to share his very difficult story about an unexpected challenge that he's going through right now.
We're at the home of Jake Peters. We're in Santa Clarita.
Yep, we're about an hour and a half away from the Truth Barrel.
And we've traveled here because it's tough for Jake to travel and not comfortable, correct?
Yes.
And the reason we're here is not just to talk about your story, but also talk about, what that means and how you deal with what you've gone through at your age. And just to kind of set the scene, where your home has a big UCLA Bruins sign outside it. You're wearing a UCLA Bruins T-shirt.
As does Jake. Yeah.
Yes. So clearly you're a fan. And at one point you were, and maybe we'll just dive into Jake's story, and start there, and everyone who's listening can kind of catch up and understand that why we're here doing this podcast.
Mm-hmm. So you're 18 now, right?
19.
Oh my, 19.
Yeah. And Jake had an experience that probably no one expects to ever have in their lives.
Yeah.
That certainly you didn't expect. Certainly we don't expect it, and it could happen to. Do you think it could just happen to anybody?
It happen to anybody, out of nowhere, any time of day.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter.
And it's something you don't think about, that when we're watching this political election, we're scared of terrorists and we're scared of, the economy, but we don't really realize that our life is a precious ticking time bomb.
And the time that we spend worrying about things that simply just don't matter.
So I'll start at the beginning. I'm sure you maybe told the story many times, but for the listeners who are here who haven't been oriented yet in your story, kind of tell us what happened.
So, on December 15th, 2014, I was at baseball practice, and I attend Loyola High School in downtown LA. About 6 p.m., I was hitting in the batting cages with one of my good friends, Brandon, and I started to get very bad chest pain. And I decided to sit down for about 10 to 15 minutes just to relax. Maybe I thought I was just short of breath, that kind of stuff. And about 15 minutes later, all went away. And then I got in a car with my friend, Alonzo, as we carpooled back to my house. I got home, ate dinner, was on the phone with my sister Olivia, and about 10 minutes after I hung up with her, I couldn't breathe at all. I went downstairs to my dad, saying I had a hard time breathing, all this stuff, and my dad thought I was just having anxiety because finals were coming up.
Right.
But that wasn't the case. Something was wrong. So he decided to take me to West LA Kaiser and take me into the ER. And I'm a type 1 diabetic, so they obviously take me in to check me out before everyone else. And they took me in, checked my vital signs and all that, and everything seemed normal. So we went back out to the waiting room to see if they could do some more tests and get more in depth with what might be wrong with me. And about after 45 minutes of being out in the waiting room, I was complaining of really bad neck pain. And my dad was rubbing my neck and all that, and then they called my name and I couldn't move. I was just sitting in the ER room, couldn't move, had to bring a wheelchair out. My dad picked me up, put me in the wheelchair. I remember being pushed back in there, and I blacked out.
Wow, what was going through your head in this time when all of a sudden you realized you couldn't move?
I honestly didn't know what to expect. I was in shock a little bit, didn't know what was happening. Knew something was wrong with me from when I couldn't breathe at the house.
One thing you haven't mentioned, I don't know if it's true or not, but I was talking to our mutual friend, Emily, and she said that you had a flu shot like a week or two before this.
Yes. I had a flu shot about a month or so before it. They're not 100% sure if that caused this. They did diagnose me with neuromyelitis optica in the hospital, but with the diagnosing of neuromyelitis optica, it does affect your eyesight. Yeah, people do go blind from it, but I had no eyesight problems whatsoever while I was in the hospital or anything, and neuromyelitis optica is a form of transverse myelitis. It's about in the same area, same category as that. So we are trying to determine if flu shot could have caused this, which is basically the top of our list.
And so, and when you say it's in the same area as that, the second thing you mentioned, which I haven't heard of before, I don't know if you have,
Transverse myelitis.
transverse myelitis, is that something that happens from the flu shot, or it's related to that, or what's the connection?
No. Transverse myelitis and neuromyelitis optica are not related to having the flu shot. Those are more based on the spinal cord injuries. But like the neuromyelitis optica, it basically ruins all the myelin around your spine and the insulation of the spine. Transverse myelitis, it's like the pinching of the spine. So they're both in the same category as spinal cord injuries, but the flu shot could have maybe triggered me to get neuromyelitis optica or transverse myelitis. We're not sure yet. So that's what we're trying to figure out right now.
Right.
We're
flu
calling
shot.
it an immunization injury, and
Right.
actually that didn't even come from us. His head neurologist at the hospital questioned, has he had any immunizations recently, and he had. And the two were the two main triggers for NMO and myelitis, which is the flu shot and the HPV virus. So those are triggers in all the cases. It's a there's
I
a
had
common lace
both
there.
those shots at the same
The
time.
Gardasil
Yeah,
shot?
of course. Because you
The
don't want to be
Gardasil,
one
I think,
more.
yeah,
hence
it's
part of the
Gardasil,
campaign.
HPV,
Right.
and
Right.
Whatever the seasonal flu shot is.
Yeah.
So since this, and I think listeners might want to know this, but have anyone in your family gotten any immunization since this happened? You're like,
absolutely not.
screw it, get the flu, get HPV, enjoy your life.
Yeah.
Right. So you're just
We're
nothing.
absolutely not. And ironically, every time I go to Kaiser, the doctor, when he comes in, he says, "Oh, you're due for your flu shot." And I said, for the 100th time, can you remove that from his file? Don't ever
Right. Wait,
ask.
they say
Don't
it to
ever
him-
ask
to
us
you?
again. Flu shot.
Okay, I like your smile.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's insane. And I'm so curious now, Jake, which is kind of, we asked about the flu shots earlier, and you kind of were like, that you were a little bit more, I would say maybe vaguer about the immunizations, whereas you were more specific. I was just curious, was there a reason why, or you just sort of like, don't think about that part of it?
Well, she knows more of like the in-depth stuff, I guess.
No, she's the parent,
Right.
and they get parents get angry.
Right. And then I'll grab the microphone. I have one more question for you. This is gonna be the hardest one. You're gonna wish you left before I ask this question, which is
Her and my dad like to communicate and then not communicate with me about stuff.
right.
Oh, they're still doing that?
Sometimes we talk about him right in front of him when
Yeah.
he's not there. Like, oh yeah, I'm sorry.
So we were just having a conversation with her husband's a big wave surfer, amongst many other things, and so we're there with a group of them, and they've lost friends to surfing. They said really this stuff is hardest on the living, and people's moms have seen their children perish in these. They're out there adventuring, but in free diving things and big wave things. And they said, oh hey, and the hardest part, they said sometimes is not the person who's going through this, but the person who watches it. So this is a long roundabout way of just asking you.
Yeah, I know.
You know where I'm going, right? So the long question is the way to warm up to it. It's like, how do you feel? I just know if I was as a parent of just an 18-month-old, and you make these decisions about these immunizations, even though you have no control over it, I'd just be kicking myself and upset at myself. I don't know if I could ever forgive myself. And how do you
Forgive
feel
yourself?
about because I make that decision for my 18-month-old son to have this immunization or not have that immunization, and do you feel like, oh shoot, I wish I'd done this differently, or how do you feel about that yourself?
So, I'm speaking on my husband's behalf. He carries the guilt.
Right.
So he was a single father to Jake for many years. And so he made a lot of his medical decisions, and he basically took care of him. and it was him that took him to the hospital. And of course, he lives with regret. I didn't get there fast enough. I wasn't more aggressive with the doctors. I'm the one who said, you know, he was a pusher for, you know, the flu shots every year because he's diabetic. He's got to get a flu shot. And I'm like, well, why? And he's like, you got to get a flu shot. So he carries a lot of guilt. And as a parent, when something like this does happen, you really do lose a child. So you go through the same mourning process as if we did lose him. It's the same mourning process. And I have to say that was a shock because it's not what you expect to experience. I remember my husband saying, you know, he didn't leave the hospital when this happened to Jake. And he said, I'm going to go home today, but I need you to go home. And Jake's baseball bag is laying on the floor. I need you to pick it up and put it in his room and shut it. Hide it. I don't want to find it. So we would get home and like we'd stop at his room and go, oh, like you'd get this heavy feeling. And a year later, when we are packing up our house to move here to accommodate Jake, of course we have to pack his backpack and his baseball stuff and his toiletry bag and all his underwear. And we basically had to pack him up. You know, his whole life went in boxes and it's in our garage. And at that point, that's when you lose one child, but you gain another.
Right.
We haven't lost Jake, and we're grateful for that every single day. But as a parent, you do mourn that loss when something like this happens.
Yeah,
And
and you ask yourself all the what if questions, which are just pointless because of course you're doing the right thing. I remember my son was born. I took everyone who lived in my house. I'm like, you were all getting flu shots because you're not going to get my son sick. Now I probably wouldn't do that.
Or HPV or Gardasil. And I think my husband, he still carries around guilt because he'll confess to me.
Right.
The two were very attached to each other. They're definitely each other's lifeline. They adore each other, so it's great they have this incredible bond. But I still see in my husband in his face, he's still mourning. He's still
Right.
mourning all his wishes and that he wanted for her son for his future and all the plans they had together or what they wanted to do or, you know, all those dreams you have for your children are not there anymore.
And for people who are just listening, the sound you hear in the background is Jake's ventilator on your wheelchair, which is looks like a sort of awesome little lawnmower tractor bottom, blue. It definitely looks like a state-of-the-art wheelchair, and the sound of the ventilator on the back. It seems like you don't have movement below the neck except for your left hand can move a little bit.
No, just it's mostly shoulder motions.
Uh-huh. Oh, so it's just your
scapular
shoulder.
motions, yeah.
Right.
I use most of my shoulder.
Right. And when did that? By the way, so when did that motion come back?
I started to get a little bit of motion in my wrist about 3 months in to me recovering, and then I started to gain a lot more about 4 to 5 months in, and then about 8 months in where it kind of just started to slow down a little bit, and then this is where I'm at right now.
And this is a hard question to ask and a broad question, but you're at the time you were 16, 15?
17.
17. So you're 17 years old, you're playing baseball, you're looking forward to just living life or whatever the things you're excited. What were you excited about at that point? You're looking forward to
Looking forward to going to college.
Yeah.
Living college life, playing baseball in college, playing varsity baseball at that point.
Right.
I was going to be on the varsity baseball team. Just being able to hang out with friends every day at school. Of course, I was in the hospital for 8 months.
Right.
Got to see my friends, but it wasn't like how it used to be, obviously.
And what's the process then, and what's the experience for you like to be like, oh shit, everything's off the table now and I'm just trying to survive?
Yeah. Complete change of pace, I guess. Completely different lifestyle.
And do you ever think, well, why did this happen to me? Or just I got bad luck? What's the way that you think about it?
Yeah, obviously. I mean, I'm religious, I'm Catholic. I always ask, why God, why did you do this to me? Why did you choose me out of everyone, you know? Think something like this would never happen to you, obviously. I mean, it happened. I mean, you gotta move on, I guess. Try to get better every day. Try to stay in a positive mood.
Right. And also, I think at 17, people are beginning the process of independence from their parents, right?
Yeah.
It's like you're pushing how late can I stay out? I'm going to go to college and not be under their roof, under their rules anymore. And now you've gone to complete dependence, I guess, right? To some degree. And how does that part feel, or how do you handle that part?
I guess just being able to rely on other people to do everything for you
Right.
is pretty hard, because before this happened to me, I was a very independent person. I like doing everything on my own, everything by myself. I didn't like having help from my dad or my parents to do things. I had my license. I was able to drive places, do my own thing, all that kind of stuff.
That part's been tough then.
Yeah.
I saw, even as I was asking the question, I saw your
Yeah.
face completely change as I asked that as I asked that question. What were you thinking then, or what?
I don't know. It just, in a way, it's just being stuck in your own body. I feel like not being able to get up and go swimming in a pool, not be able to go to a gym and work out, not being able to do things with your friends. I'm either in a chair or I'm in bed for 18 hours a day, just staring at four walls. Sometimes, you know, it's hard to stay mentally healthy, I guess.
Right.
Sometimes when we meet people that, whatever, if they have different challenges than us, right? And I know you must experience this, like if you go places and all of a sudden you feel like, oh, they're giving me special treatment. Would you almost prefer not to be given special treatment in that way? You know what I mean? Like, do you have any friends from before that gave you a hard time when you were friends, you know, before all this happened, and they're still like up in your face and like, hey Jake, and like giving you a hard time?
Yeah, all my close buddies still do that with me. They give me a hard time. We still talk smack about things. We're big sports fans, so we have our sports teams. We talk bad about each other's football teams, baseball teams, all that stuff. That'll never go away, which I love doing.
And is there one thing that you've maybe gotten to do through this that you've maybe wouldn't have had in your life otherwise?
Well, I did receive a wish from the Make-A-Wish Foundation, and I was able to do one thing I've always wanted to do, which was go to San Diego and go to the MLB All-Star Game. I went to the All-Star Game, the Home Run Derby, the Celebrity All-Star Game, got to meet a bunch of people, a bunch of players, Joe Torre, the MLB commissioner, a bunch of people I've always dreamed about meeting, which wouldn't have happened unless Make-A-Wish granted me something I really wanted to do.
I'm curious because you watch sports still, and I'm sure you study the games, all the games, that I think you could, I mean, again, I don't know how much exposure you can have to like tons and tons of people, but it would be also interesting. What about being involved in baseball in another way, in watching teams and watching guys, even if it's at your local level here, and helping them out because you love the game, you know the game, and now you probably see the game better than you've ever seen it.
That's funny because before this actually happened to me, if baseball didn't work out and me being drafted or something like that, I really wanted to be a general manager for a baseball club. That's something I wanted to go to school for. I wanted to work in like the front office of a baseball team. My dad still says, "Why not? Why you can't?"
That's what I was thinking of saying. It. I was really guys. My next thing is so why? What's keeping? Why not? So why not?
Yeah.
I don't really know, to be honest with you. My dad's told me why not go to school for like sports management or something like that, because that's what I really wanted to do, was become a GM.
Yeah, when I was in high school, my swim coach, this guy Greg Baker, I think he was going to the Olympics. He was in a car accident, was paralyzed, and was like, not only was he our college swim coach, and again he was a great coach. Just he was a great coach, still paralyzed. He was also became the English teacher, and probably the reason I write is he taught me that with English classes with him. So I guess you still haven't answered the question of why not. Is what I'm trying to say.
I really don't know. I mean, I haven't been motivated too much to go back to school, I guess. When I first got home, I really just liked being home with my family and all that. I guess it's just the motivation to go to class, do all that stuff.
Do you think, and I'm going out on a little of a limb here, but we all have that motivation. Like, my natural tendency is to do nothing, right? Like, getting out of bed in the morning is still like, I don't want to get out of bed in the morning. And then when I go to work out with Gabby, like, I don't want to go work out. Like, and then when I go to write, like, I definitely don't want to go write, even though it's my passion and everything else. But you have a good reason not to. Right? You have a great reason not to, because look at all difficult. It's so difficult, and it takes people to get you there, and who knows what could happen. But do you think that if you made that commitment to do it, that you could do it?
I really don't like putting the stress on people. I don't like relying on people to do so much for me, like my sister or my dad, because I know my dad works a lot. My sister has to go to class. My stepmom works in Northern California. I know they do a lot already, so I just feel like trying to push them kind of would make them more exhausted, more tired, and maybe in a way more miserable, I guess.
Oh, it's so interesting. It's so weird that what you just said is so heartbreaking for two reasons. One is so the reason you don't want to do is you don't want to inconvenience anybody who's already doing so much for you and your family. Is that the reason? Is that the real reason?
That's the main reason, I guess. Yeah.
And
they already do so much for me. I feel like that I rely on them so much. Is just rely on them to do more for me, and how much they already do for me is just a lot, I feel like.
And you said too, and I think it's very telling, is you said more miserable, as if they're miserable already. And I'm wondering if that's even true, because it was a telling word. Did you catch that too?
Yeah.
I know my dad, with his job, gets stressed out a lot, and then Olivia having to go to class, come home, do her essays, research, all that kind of stuff. And then my mom only comes around once every other month because she lives in Oregon. And then my stepmom is out of town a lot. So I feel like my dad does so much for me, and then he works 7 days a week. He's a baseball coach. He already does so much. I feel like so much is already on his shoulders to do his job the right way, and then he's worrying about me and all that stuff. It's just a lot on my family already.
But
Pushing
also, we haven't
because
put
of
into
your-
the equation
right.
how tired he gets.
That's true.
I'd love to know, like, what's your tap out generally? Like, is it 2 hours and then you're like, yo, I need a break? You know what I mean? Like, to go to school and all that? Do you have sort of a window, like, if you go somewhere, you go, I'm good for a few hours, and then
Definitely longer sessions are harder, so I would say maybe after 3 hours I'm about done. Usually at high school, when I went to finish and graduate, going all day was pretty hard.
Right.
Yeah.
But you did it. You did it. Oh, this is killing me. I'm so like, this is killing me, because you did it. You did high school. You graduated high school. You graduated high school on time with your class, and hey, it was exhausting. But this is just me speaking to you, which is, okay, take a break. You graduated in June. Now it's
let's
it's
go
a few
already.
months later, right?
3 months, let's go.
Now get back, and get you did it. You made it happen with all those inconveniences, and here you have a big support system. Even your dad's not saying don't do it because it's inconvenience to me. Your dad's saying why not. So he's
I will speak as a parent, and I have three daughters, and one's a little bit older than you, and the next one's younger than you. As a parent, besides obviously the basics, like, hey, I got to pay the bills and keep the lights on, the thing you want is for your children to find their thing, their passion. And so, believe me, your dad, it could be harder, but if for some reason it was something that was you were getting directed towards something that inspired you, that would empower your dad and your family in a whole other level. And this is something that you can't control. This happened, and it's more work for you and your family. But it's not a like if you said to your dad, is it a burden? It's not a burden. Your dad, you're his son.
And they're not miserable.
No, and so if it was something like, man, Jake's turned on by that and gets fired up, believe me, everyone around you would mobilize to figure out how to get that done.
And it's clearly such a passion. I mean, there's the pennant outside, you're wearing the shirt.
When he says the word baseball, his
Yeah,
eyes
his eyes
get
will
like
get lost on
twinkly.
And so what would be the first step if you decided to do it? If you wanted to sort of get into the management side, or
Definitely be a long journey.
what would be the first step in that journey, though?
Getting a job with a team, and
Or were you saying there was a school you go to, or is in? Are there
well, I
other
could go to
steps?
school. I wanted to major in sports management.
Mhm.
Sports management. After that, my dad is a baseball coach at UCLA, so I could start off working.
Oh, you got the nepotistic.
I
He's
was
already
gonna
going to
say
work. He can just take you to work.
But he's Catholic, he's not Jewish.
Right. Yeah.
Look at, look at it.
But
Listen, his dad's at UCLA. It's
Right.
like,
oh, you're set up. So yeah, and I'm sure your dad would love to see you kind of following in those footsteps. Obviously, he's excited about it. I also think too. Yeah, you just have such a passion for it. I'll let go. I'll totally let go of it. But when we we'll come back in 6 months and follow
yeah, he'll
up.
be back.
We're gonna.
Jake, you think I'm kidding? He'll be back.
But
Do you do physical? Because I'm looking at you and you.
before we change the subject.
Oh wait, I'm trying to
One thing.
protect him from
Okay,
you now.
I know,
I'm
I
just
know.
kidding. I'll get Olivia up here. She'll open up some whoop ass
Poor
on Neil.
kid when he
Don't worry
grows
about
up.
it.
Can you kind of see yourself doing that, going to school for sports management, getting in, working
Yeah.
with your dad? What day are you going to start?
Oh man.
I'm worried.
Neil wants your cell number.
Okay, I
watch
guess
out.
I'll start
He'll
tomorrow.
be texting you.
Don't pacify me. Because the other thing is this, and then we can go to Gabby's question. Gabby's just laughing. The other thing is I think what's nice about starting school too is then you're on a schedule versus a book. As a writer, I know a book you can just do anytime. I can procrastinate forever until I have to do it, and speaking. But I think it would be good too just diving into something that really excites you around your passion and not letting. You're nodding. Yes,
I
no.
agree. I
And
just,
not getting,
do it all.
sinking into sort of just habit and routine.
And do it all because you have a lot to teach other people. What you've gone through, and just you as a person, never mind what you've gone through, you have a lot to teach everyone else. And so I think it's important to find the way, right, to stay motivated enough so you can do that. And you can say, oh, well, everyone's helping me and all this, but it's an exchange both ways.
Yes.
It's not a one way everyone's helping you. Believe me, if I sat down and Neil and I talked to every one of your family members, you're teaching everyone around you.
And, Gabby and I talked to a number of people who have survived near-death experiences.
Yeah.
We talked to someone who was sort of a cancer survivor, someone else who was a big wave surfer and literally drowned. And they said that when they came back, they really had this appreciation for things they were never able to appreciate before. That just whatever the leaves outside your hair or things like that. Is that you have a sort of a different appreciation for things than you did before? You don't have to. Maybe no. Maybe you're just pissed off.
Yeah, I mean, before this all happened to me, I would throw fits about doing stuff. having to go clean the patio outside or having to do dishes and all that and that kind of stuff. Now, looking back on it, I wish I can go do the dishes and clean the patio and go clean my own room and do things myself and all that, which I actually miss doing those things, like being able to give my dog a bath or doing those type of things, you know. But
Yeah, I never think that's a message for people listening. It's like that everything we get to do is a privilege, and not then having resistance for it, or is just not realizing that somebody like like Jake, or for a lot of people, feel lucky to get to do most of what we do and bitch about.
yeah.
Yeah.
But don't think, like, honestly, Jake, Neil and I will talk about this after, but guaranteed we've both learned something today.
Yeah.
And so don't be afraid to share what you know.